My role as chairman will continue. However, the responsibility for managing the meeting has been temporarily assigned to the Democratic Service Officer, Mrs. Banks. This officer will not steer the debate. They will merely assist in implementing the remote meeting protocols. Democratic Services Officer, Miss Parfitt, is also in attendance. Members are reminded that instant messaging will be visible to all viewing the meeting and must only be used by members to indicate their wish to speak. I now ask the clerk to take the attendance register by reading out the list of committee members who will confirm their attendance by answering present. Over to you, Lara.
Thank you. We've received apologies from Councillor Burton and we have substitute member Councillor Garton.
Good evening. Yes, still here.
Thank you. Councillor Joy.
Present.
Councillor Cadker.
Present.
Councillor Mortimer.
Present.
Councillor Powell.
Present.
Councillor Mrs. Robertson.
Present.
Councillor D. Rose.
Present.
And Councillor M. Rose.
Present.
And Councillor Young.
Present.
Thank you.
No, thank you. The clerk will now read out the list of officers present and which items they will be presenting.
Thank you. With us tonight we have Director of Regeneration and Place, William Cornell, Head of Housing and Community Services, John Littlemore, for items 14, 16 and 17, Director of Finance and Business Improvement, Mark Green, for item 15, Senior Business Analyst, Carly Benville, item 15, Waste Manager, Graham Gosden, item 15, Policy and Information Manager, Anna Collier, for item 18, Head of Policy, Communications and Governance, Angela Woodhouse, for item 18, Parks and Open Spaces Manager, Andrew Williams, for item 19. We also have Olivia Parfitt, Democratic Services Officer, and myself, Lara Banks, as clerk.
Lovely. Okay. Thank you very much, Lara. A full house tonight, folks. Okay. Item 1, apologies. We've received apologies from Councillor Burton. M. Burton, so I think that is the only one at this stage. And then we go on to item 2, substitute members. Are there any substitute members? I'll ask, do it officially.
Yeah, we've been already through that.
Okay. For the webcast. Okay.
Yeah, for the webcast, it's Councillor Garton here sitting in for Councillor Burton.
Lovely. Cheers, Patrick. There are no urgent items this evening. Notification of visiting members. Councillor Parfitt Reid is visiting member and registered to speak on 19. Are you here, Lottie?
Yes, I'm here.
Lovely, thank you. Are there any other visiting members?
Mr. Chairman, Councillor Malcolm Mackay.
Okay, thank you. What item are you speaking on? Are you interested in, Malcolm?
I suspect I'll be quite quiet this evening, Mr. Chairman, but I reserve the right to speak on 15 to 18.
Okay.
And Councillor Atkinson, I'm here for a question to the chair. Item 11, I think.
Yep, you're quite correct. Thank you. And Councillor Kimmons, I believe you're here?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm here to possibly speak on all items, and also, like Councillor Atkinson, maybe to speak on the question to the chair.
Right, okay.
Councillor Vizard, I'm here.
Pardon, Brian. Yep.
I'm here, Mr. Chairman. Just listening in. I'm not going. I don't know what to speak on anything. I was only interested in the rough sleepers issue.
Yep. Okay, Brian. Thank you very much. Lovely. Okay, we go to item 5. Are there any disclosures by members and officers? No, thank you. Disclosures for lobbying. The clerk will ask members if they have lobby. They must either answer none or yes and specify the item or items. Over to you, Lara.
Thank you. Councillor Garton.
Sorry, yeah, no, nothing good here.
Thank you. Councillor Joy.
None.
Khadka,
None.
Councillor Mortimer,
None.
Councillor Powell,
None.
Councillor Mrs Robertson,
None.
Councillor D Rose,
None.
Councillor M Rose,
None.
Councillor Young.
None.
Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you, everybody. Item 7. I move that all items be taken in public. If there is no dissent, I will assume this is agreed.
Agreed.
Yep. Thank you very much. Item 8. The minutes of the meeting. I don't propose to go page by page, but they were held on the 5th of January, and I agree that they're a correct record, and I assume that you agree as well if there's silence. Okay, that's agreed. Thank you very much. Item 9, presentation of petitions. We don't have any petitions this evening. Question and answer session from members of the public. There is one question from a member of the public this evening. I call upon Miss Maureen Cleater to ask her question. Over to you, Maureen, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. In the last year, there has been an increase in antisocial behaviour, including violent attacks, which have been centred in and around Star House, Pudding Lane. Local residents and businesses have reported increased drug and alcohol use, which has resulted in, and not limited to, people under the influence of suspected substance abuse gathering outside a salon, a local business, promoting a very uncomfortable atmosphere. One chap who was walking in the road with his head down by his waist decided to rest his head on the salon window and subsequently fell asleep with his head on the window for around 15 minutes. He then snapped out of it, ran down the road to Star House. 2 days later, he did almost exactly the same, but wasn't quite so lucky and fell into the shop doorway and had to be picked up and get him outside. A man under the influence entered a local business, barbers, and proceeded to attack a dummy in front of clients and staff who had to manhandle him out of the shop. And residents have been observing in numerous incidents requiring the attendance of emergency services. Local residents and businesses are being subject to verbal abuse, and rubbish is being thrown out of Star House windows, which landed in Royal Star Arcade car park. To help improve the area, we would like to know what agencies, including London boroughs and actions, are Maidstone Borough Council working with and on to reduce antisocial behaviour, including county lines gang activity that are operating in Maidstone town centre, which we believe are a contributing factor to what residents and businesses are experiencing, which is having a negative impact on the health and well-being of residents and businesses.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your question, and obviously it's very concerning for you, and I quite understand why you've asked this particular question. Thank you. It has come to our notice that there have been an increase in reported incidents in and around the area referred to in the question. As a result, a meeting recently took place between senior officers from the council, police, and other key agencies. This has enabled important information to be shared, including the survey outcomes from local residents. The partnership is exploring the most effective way of tackling the issues highlighted by the member of the public, and is determined to improve the experience of those living and working in the town centre. Do you have a supplementary question, please? Are you there, Miss Cleater?
Sorry, I was muted again. I do apologise.
We'll do that.
Yes, remote hearing. Yes, it's very gratifying to know that you've had meetings with senior officers and that. However, that doesn't seem to have translated to actually meeting or arranging to work with the local residents, because the ones I've been in contact with, which I have to say I hold my hands up, includes my son, have seen and perceived that there's been very little action that's been fed back to local residents. So my question would be, would you be willing to meet with, obviously virtually because of the pandemic, local residents to actually come up, because they want to be part of the solution. I will say that straight away.
That's what's needed. Yes.
Yeah. Can I just say at this meeting as well, it's not a question, I'd just like to thank the local PCSO who's been assisting us with this, because I know he's implemented a lot of work.
Yes.
We want to be part of the solution, not just to come here and moan, shall I say.
No, I quite, and that's good for community spirit. That's good, and I'm sure we'll get to the bottom of it. Yes, I'm happy to be involved in a meeting, and perhaps we can arrange something going forward. Obviously, virtually, it's the only way we can do it at the moment, and hopefully we'll have perhaps some more news in while we're setting this up. So I expect it'll be a week or so off, and then we can actually discuss what we've done and what we plan to do in the future.
We have done some work as well. I'd just like to respond that we've actually done some work, and at least Newham have responded to how many people they place there. But the big concern is the building is up for sale for 6.9 million.
Right, that's Star House, is it?
That's Star House itself. And I know that there's been concerns raised from tenants who have businesses about repairs and the state of the building that is causing trouble. So if that could all be included in it, that would be really great.
We can have a discussion, and probably I'll include High Street ward councillors as well, because I'm my ward. I'm the chairman of this committee, but my ward, so we would invite the 3 ward councillors as well for High Street ward to be involved.
Chairman, excuse me, I have actually indicated in the IM. I'm Councillor Denise Joy, one of the ward members, and I did just write in there, I would be more than happy to help with this if my details are passed on. So more than happy. Okay, thank you.
Very much appreciated, thank you.
Lovely, thank you very much. I've got, this isn't the normal case chat, people that are in the IM regarding this, but I will there's 2 in the moment, as Dan Rose and Eddie Powell. So Dan, would you like to say something just quickly, please?
Yeah, sorry, Chairman, I know it's not proper for this, but I just wanted to support Miss Cleater's comments. In my other life, I supply a number of the hairdressing and barbering businesses on that street, and I know through speaking with them they've had some difficult times. The street in particular contains almost entirely independent businesses that are run by local people, and particularly businesses like hair salons and the self-care industry have really found it hard during this time, and things like this that the guys at Fargs experienced, and hedonism on Pudding Lane with the chap in the doorway, it really makes a hard life harder. So yeah, if anything can be done to help these people and everyone on the street and the area, I think we should try our best.
Thank you, Dan. And I've just seen in the IM as well from Miss Cleater is the councillor Kadka has actually indicated, and he's a High Street ward councillor, he's interested, and there will be Councillor English as well. So Eddie Powell next, please, and then that's it, folks, on this item.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I mean, it was only 12 months ago that we was having exactly the same conversations about the estate on Sheppey, where I'm a ward member there, and the issues that we were going through, which were very, very kind of similar to what is happening at Mrs. Cleater's kind of area. But what we did at that particular time is we got the police very heavily involved. There was also a number of us that used to go round to the estate at 10:30 at night when the majority of the problems seemed to be resolved, and there were arrests made. But but we found that once the police had got involved, and I think social services were involved as well, we were able to, when I say clean the area up, that's probably it's a bit unfair to most of the people, but the residents were involved. We had covert cameras put up, and I'm just hoping that if we as a council, because everybody is so supportive towards Mrs. Cleater and the residents in that particular area, if we can come up with something along those lines, hopefully we can do the same for Pudding Lane that we did for the Shepway Estate last year. Just a suggestion, Mr. Chairman.
Yep, that's a good suggestion. Thank you, Eddie. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Miss Cleater, for your time and attending. And we're obviously going to take this forward for you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we go on to item 11 now. Questions from members to the chairman. There's 2 questions this evening, and the first up is Councillor Atkinson. Over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, my question is, on the 10th of September 2018, a questionnaire was sent out to all members of the council asking for an indication of any local sites that would potentially meet the criteria for creation of a local nature reserve. A report was presented to the Heritage, Culture and Leisure Committee, as it was then, for its meeting 6 weeks later on the 30th of October 2018. Eventually, more than a year after this, a report came to Communities, Housing and Environment Committee on the 16th of December 2019, recommending that CHI recommends to Policy and Resources Committee that funding and resources be considered to bring the agreed programme for local nature reserves forward. Everything went very quiet after that. In fact, local nature reserves vanished from the CHI committee work programme completely. It wasn't until Councillor M. Rose asked the question at CHI at its meeting on the 5th of January 2021 that the issue was resurrected, with the minutes for that meeting noting it was noted that the Local Nature Reserves report would be presented to the Policy and Resources Committee before being presented to the committee, i.e. CHI, due to the additional funding necessary for the sites. So can the Chairman please let members know which meetings of PNR and then CHI will be receiving the report? Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. Cheers. Okay, as discussed at the last CHI meeting, there is a proposed additional 12k budget growth for the next financial year for local nature reserves, which represents the annual running costs for 6 new reserves. This sum does not allow for the initial setup costs, however, which would be in addition to this, but there will be one-off sources of funding, such as the £1 million climate change pot in the capital programme, which can be used for this. The budget is scheduled for consideration by full council on the 24th of February, and so assuming that the additional monies are indeed approved, an officer report by the Parks Manager, Andrew Williams, will come to CHI on the 6th of April this year, 21, to set out the approach of the delivery. Do you have a supplementary there, Keith?
Yes, trouble with my microphone. Yes, I do. What about PNR? That's the first part. And my main question is, in view of the fact that the Fant Wildlife Area is oven ready, I don't know where I got that phrase from, for receiving this status, and the funding required is therefore minimal and could possibly be funded from Section 106 money, can the Chairman please confirm that the Fant Wildlife Area will be given the go-ahead and when this will happen? Thanks very much.
Yeah. I don't have the details of the costs at all with me, and I wouldn't even like to guess, but I do agree with you that the Fant one is number 1 probably on the list. Hale Park Nature Reserve is number 2, and then the rest tumble down to the 6. I mean, we'd like to do all 6 in one go, if I could put it like that. You know, obviously because of under the climate change issue and the time that we've been waiting for this. Obviously, I said it's going to go to full council. So it will be signed off and the money will be there for it to go forward.
That's good. Thank you very much.
All right, Keith. Thank you. Right, now we go to Councillor Emrose, please, for your question.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just to add my voice to saying how good the briefing was from Golding Homes, and also to raise another housing question. As MBC have access of, I believe, 200 rental properties, can I ask if MBC proposes an in-house housing management strategy rather than using Maidstone Borough money on an outside property management company?
Okay, thank you for your question, Margaret. The council currently owns and manages 100 units of temporary accommodation through its accommodation team, which includes emergency housing in support of our Rough Sleeper initiative. This portfolio will be expanded over the coming year in line with the agreed capital programme. In addition, there are 20 general fund properties that are now managed by the same team. Maidstone Property Holdings Limited comprises of 34 units over 2 sites, and this will be supplemented in early spring 21 with the handover of the new developments at Brunswick Street and Union Street. It is intended that from April 21, the council's accommodation team will administer the daily operation of the Maidstone Property Holdings properties under a new management agreement. I am pleased to advise members that a briefing session has been arranged for the 11th of March on the council's investment programme in affordable homes and the private rented sector housing. The session will cover the council's capital investment strategy, Maidstone Property Holdings Limited, as well as past, present and future schemes in the programme and how the growing portfolio is being managed. Do you have a supplementary question at all, Margaret?
Well, thank you very much, Chair, for that very good answer. Thank you. And my supplementary was tucked inside because I was going to ask how many and what status these houses, this accommodation was. So thank you very much. Is it possible to send that answer to me by email? Because I haven't recorded it or whatever. Is that possible?
Yes, no problem. We get that.
Thank you very much, Derek. That's a very good answer, and I much appreciate it. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you, Margaret. Thank you. Okay, folks. That's the end of the question session. We go to item 12 now, the committee work programme, which is on page 7. I've looked at this, and we had a committee service committees with all the chairs. Was it yesterday? I think, I don't know what day it is, but I think it was yesterday. And I went through this, and we agreed and disagreed. But essentially, this looks as it should be. I don't have any issues with it, except that just to remember, as I said just now, is the actual briefing we're going to have on the MBC housing portfolio on the 11th of March, which obviously won't appear on the work programme, but it's something to put in your diaries. Do we have any questions on the work programme at all?
Yes, Chair. I've just put in a little green telephone thing there.
Sorry, I'm not. Yeah, you're right. Sorry.
Yeah. Thank you very much for your answer to Councillor Atkinson, and it's a very interesting and full answer. So thank you for that. It's just that I feel a little bit concerned, having this gone on for such a long time, that hopefully it won't just be talking about it, but it will be a move forward, which I believe you, Councillor Atkinson, myself, as I have to say, I am actually on the committee of Fant Wildlife, but I just really hope that it will be a move forward. So because we waited for so long, I am concerned. So I'd just like to voice my concern. Thank you very much.
No, thank you. I'm sure I'm confident that April when is it? Well, later in nature,
6th
so
of
the
April.
6th of April will be the final one. Let's put it like that, because the money will be identified by.
Very good. I'm sure everybody will be really pleased to hear that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Anybody else on the work programme at all?
Please, yes, Mr. Chairman, I indicated I don't have this green little hand available, so I will just type if you don't mind. Just a question to the possible prevention of further council-owned G&T sites. Now, I'm not a regular member in this committee. It's just because it's TBC. Has this been kicked in the tall grass, or when can we expect the report, roughly?
Oh, no, it's not been kicked. It's very high on the list. But can I ask an officer, Mr. Cornell, would you like to come in on this, please?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Good evening, members. Yes, we've actually got the first officer group starting off this project meeting tomorrow, sort of scoping it out in terms of sort of various planning considerations and so on. We're then going to bring that back to a small group of members to bounce ideas around a little bit more in detail, and then we're going to be bringing a paper back to this committee. I'm just looking at the yes, so it is on the work programme. So I would imagine we'd be looking at April, ideally, as possible for that report. But yes, so the chairman of this committee is going to be involved in the sort of workshop that we're going to be running and getting ideas together. So the project is underway. Thank you.
Thank you, William. Okay, any other questions, anybody? No? Okay, so that's the work programme. Thank you very much. Item 13, reports to outside bodies, which is on page 8. As you can see, there is only one nomination form this evening from Councillor English for the vacant position at Cutbush and Coral. I move that Councillor English be nominated as the council's representative on Cutbush and Coral charity. Do I have a seconder for that?
I'll second that, Derek. It's Eddie. Yeah.
Thank you, Eddie. Lovely. Nobody's indicated to speak. I can see. I don't think we need to vote on this because, well, any dissent from anybody? Let's put it like that. No, okay, that's agreed then. So Councillor English is back on Cutbush and Coral. Thank you. Right, now we go to item 14, the reference from the licensing committee, and this will be introduced on busking, obviously, from Mr. Littlemore. Over to you, John.
Thank you, Chairman, and good evening, members. As the report sets out, this matter has been considered at length by both the licensing committee and more recently by the Earl committee as well. In terms of where this came from, it was really local businesses, particularly on Week Street, had approached us with regard to some difficulties that were being experienced with two particular buskers at the time. This would have been pre-COVID, obviously. And as a result of that, we took some initial soundings and explored what were the options in terms of how we could try and regulate without being overly bureaucratic the issue of busking, because it was felt in the main that people saw that as a benefit if it was done correctly to the town centre. I was asked at not this committee, but one of the other committees I attended, whether Maidstone, the bid, had been involved in discussions on this, and I can confirm that they were very much involved in the development of these guidelines from the outset. We've also done a public consultation on the guidelines, which went back to licensing committee, and some amendments were made as a result of that. So we are asking the Chi Committee to give its approval so that we can implement the guidelines, and hopefully the experience for everybody coming into the town centre, including the buskers, will be a happy one. Thank you, Chair.
Lovely. Thank you, John. Thank you. There aren't any questions in the IM, so I'm assuming that everybody's happy with this. I certainly am. As we know, it's been backwards and forwards a couple of times, and the full consultation being done. So I'm happy to move it from the chair. Do I have a seconder, please?
Seconded,
Yes,
Chair.
Was that Councillor Joy or?
It's okay. I'll give it to whoever the other one was. That's fine.
I don't know who it was.
It's me, Councillor Robertson.
Robertson. Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Robertson seconded it. Okay, so if there's no dissent, 2 seconds. That is approved as per the recommendation on page 9. Thank you very much. Okay, we go to item 15 now, which is the third quarter financial update on page, performance monitoring report, pages 23 to 47. And we have Ellie Dunnett this evening with us and Carly Benville. Over to you, ladies.
Actually, Chair, you've got Mark Green. Sorry to disappoint you, but you've
right, okay.
Carly Benville to talk about performance. I'll introduce the financial bit of it, and I'll hand over to Carly on the performance bit.
Certainly. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Mark.
No problem. The first appendix, which deals with financial performance, sets out the position to the end of Q3. And as was mentioned last time we reported on the finances, although COVID-19 has had quite a big impact on the council's finances, it's largely been around loss of income, and this committee hasn't been as badly affected as others. So what you'll see is that we're projecting actually a favourable variance for this year for this committee's services of 471,000. And the details are set out or summarised on page 39, where you can see the individual services that have done better than budgeted, and the favourable variances outweigh the adverse ones. So I'm happy to take any questions on that. There is one other financial matter which I'd like to raise, which is that members will remember we made some amendments to the crematorium charges that were discussed at the meeting last month, and inadvertently the charges that were agreed by the committee included some which didn't reflect the basic principle which was being proposed and which everybody accepted, which was that there shouldn't be any increases for interment for residents of the borough. So as part of the recommendations in this report, you're just asked to correct that, and the charges concerned are set out on page 28 in the table at paragraph 1.6. So that's all on the finances. So maybe if I can hand over now to Carly Benville to talk about the performance appendix.
Thank you, Mark, and good evening, Chairman and members. So during Q3, 8 of the 15 indicators missed their targets. Most of these were due to some form of relation to COVID-19 pandemic. From Appendix 2 of this report, which is page 43 onwards in your packs, 5 of the indicators that miss the targets fall under the safe, clean and green priority. And you can see that the unauthorised encampment target was missed, and the COVID-19 guidelines around these encampments had prevented the community protection team from removing the encampment from Birchholt Road. However, the site was continually monitored for antisocial behaviour or criminality, and the team have reported that as of last Wednesday, the unauthorised encampment has in fact moved from the location to a transit site in Brighton. Both the indicators monitoring fly tipping have also missed targets, and this is namely due to staff shortages. The depot team have had several positive COVID-19 cases, which has resulted in absence or staff needing to self-isolate, so the time taken to assess the fly tips in the quarter was affected by this. The indicator monitoring the levels of litter on the highway has also missed target, although marginally, and it appears to have been a victim of littering offences in between its scheduled cleansing routines, which coincided unfortunately with the day it was surveyed. Now, whilst it is mentioned in the reports, I also wanted to draw attention to the delay the waste team are currently experiencing in receiving the data needed for the waste indicators for this committee. At the time of writing the report, only October's data was available. I can now confirm that November's data was provided just last week, and the value achieved for the percentage of household waste, which is sent for reuse, recycling and composting, is currently at 50.49%. The contamination figures for Q3, excluding December, are currently at 276.75 tonnes. And once December data is available for both of these indicators, we will of course circulate the updated outcomes to this committee. So moving on to the homes and communities priorities, 3A indicators out of 7 missed their targets. Both the gas safety and electrical safety indicators were missed due to the occupants of the properties refusing entry to the contractors. This was either due to shielding or other COVID-19 concerns. Now, it should be noted that where we, as a landlord, are responsible for fully maintaining the properties, we are fully compliant. However, we have some tenants on a fully repairing lease where the council has taken a decision to ensure good standing via compliance. However, it is not a requirement of a landlord under this lease to carry out this function. The properties missed in this quarter fell under these latter tenancies. However, the housing team have confirmed that all properties are now fully compliant. And lastly, the indicator for successful relief duty outcomes also missed its target for the quarter. Previously expressed, the team are performing better than the national average for this topic, and the monitoring for successful relief duty outcomes does not necessarily mean the applicant was not housed. Some of the applicants go on to be owed a main housing duty after the 56-day period. Also, there was a high amount of applicants that simply lost contact after making their initial application, or they withdrew their initial claim after investigations had been started. This resulted in 24% of the cases being marked as unsuccessful this quarter for the terms of reporting. However, on the flip side, the team successfully prevented or relieved 194 applicants from homelessness, with a successful prevention duty outcome of 74.88%. And as with Mark, I'm also happy to take any questions you may have about the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Very concise and a good report to read. And I think, if I can say it from the chair, and I'm sure I can share it with everybody else, that under the circumstances that all our officers have had to work under, considering they've done a very, very good job having to carry on as normal in the public's eye, so to speak. So congratulations to all of them. And also, members, just to let you know, we've got Graham Gosden on the line, the waste manager, in case you have any questions on that as well at the time. So I've got Councillor Robertson to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is it too early to say whether the little leaflets that were attached to the bins, telling people what they can and can't recycle, is it too early to say whether those have had an effect yet?
Do you want to comment on that, Graham?
Certainly, Chairman. The leaflets were distributed to the Blue Week, which was the 23rd of November. In answer to the question, yes, I think it's too early, but we have seen signs of improvement.
So you're actually actively monitoring that at the moment, then?
Certainly. We delivered it to half the borough deliberately as a comparison, or to enable comparison, and we count on a week-by-week basis the rejection to check that comparator.
I know they were delivered in my own area in Allington.
Yes, again, it's monitored. It's only a month or so. I think it's a bit early to draw any firm conclusions.
Yeah. Let's hope we can see a result in the not too distant future.
Okay. Thank you, Graham. Anybody else wish to speak on this item? No. That's very good. Thank you very much, officers. That's very good. We've got the recommendations are on page 24. If there's no dissent at all, I'll move them from the chair. And do I have a seconder?
Seconded.
Seconded. That was Councillor Joy.
Councillor Joy, yes.
Thank you. Lovely. Okay. So that is agreed, folks. Thank you very much. And thank you, officers. Item 16 now, please. The Maidstone Borough Council tenancy strategy, presented by Mr. Littlemore. Over to you, John.
Thank you, Chair. The tenancy strategy remains a legal requirement for every local housing authority to have, even though they have fallen out of favour in recent years with changes of government. But it remains on the statute book, and our own tenancy strategy is rather out of date. So it was an imperative for us to update it, particularly as we now have our own portfolio of temporary accommodation, which we didn't have before, and the council has ambitions to start delivering its own housing stock once again, up to 200 units. So, as I say, it was important that we updated the tenancy strategy to enable us to move forward with those matters, but also to give a clear indication to our housing providers that work with us, the registered providers, which you'll know as housing associations like Golding Homes, because they are required to have regard to the tenancy strategy, although there isn't a compunction on them to follow it to the letter. So, members, the report contains the draft document, which we are required to consult with those housing providers in our area. So what we're asking members to do is approve that document for consultation purposes to be brought back in April for it to enable you to sign off the finished article. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. I've got Councillor Margaret Rose first, please.
I'm just going to start my video up. You might be able to see me in a minute. Can you see me?
Yes, I can see you. Oh, you've gone now.
Oh, start my bit. There we are. Okay. Right. Do tell me if I'm wrong, because I hope I am. But I read through the tenancy strategy, and it's got nothing about anything we spoke about as far as the pets policy was concerned. And I'm a bit confused about whether this tenancy is temporary or permanent or exactly, the whole situation. But I mean, we worked very hard on bringing forward. Before I was elected, there was the temporary pets, and then obviously, as you will remember, we came back 4 times to committee about the allocation of housing within pets policy, but that doesn't seem to be within the tenancy strategy. So can you explain anything about that, please?
Okay, over to you, John.
Yes, certainly, Councillor Rose. The strategy is a high-level document, so it was never intended by government that it should set out all the different obligations that both the landlord and the tenant should adhere to. So what was agreed by members at this committee in terms of the way that we allocate accommodation to people who have pets, that's been adopted by members and that's implemented. So this strategy doesn't directly impact on that. So that those matters that was agreed by committee will continue. This is very much setting out at the time that the government legislated for local housing authorities to require them to have these strategies. It was because government policy at the time was to end lifetime tenancies and have fixed term tenancies instead. So the strategy was there to set out who would be offered what length of fixed term tenancy. That's why I say that they've really fallen out of favour, because successive governments have actually moved away from that position and back to the lifetime tenancy approach, which is reflected in this updated document. So, as I say, it's really to deal with that high level issues. The strategy itself does deal with both temporary accommodation and long-term accommodation, if you like. We're not required to have a strategy for temporary accommodation, but because we do provide our own now, we thought it good practice to do so. So I hope that clarifies it for you, Councillor Rose.
Yes, that's very helpful. Thank you, Mr. Littlemore. As you can well imagine, when reading it, after all the time that I and Councillor Mackay put into the whole situation, I was a little worried about this, and I think it's important to raise that and just to say that within that strategy, we need to have that built into it, because when I'm reading it, I was frightened that it had fallen off the end again, if you don't mind me putting it that way. So hopefully that, as you can I feed back to you and say that what I understand you're saying is that what we already decided as far as temporary and permanent accommodation, as far as what we thought about as far as people with pets, will continue. And I've got nothing against the strategy reading through it. It all sounds totally okay, except, of course, as I say, I was worried about the situation as far as people with pets were concerned. So can you give an assurance again, might I ask, that that effort that Councillor Mackay and I put in hasn't fallen off the end?
That is correct, Councillor Rose. We are aware of just how strong committee members felt about that issue. So that's continuing, and we gave a commitment to come back to this committee 12 months after the adoption of that policy. We will do that. I can assure you that it is being implemented at the moment, and yes, it will remain so. Thank you.
That's lovely. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you for confirming that, everybody. Cheers. Councillor Garton, please.
Yeah, I thank Councillor Rose for spotting this pet policy thing, because I think this is important. Couldn't we, as part of this high-level document which we have in front of us, couldn't we affix an appendix to it, which just simply lists all our other housing policies which are encompassed by this statutory document? My understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Littlemore, but this seems to be like the Constitution, and then there's local statute going side by side with it. So an appendix in this Constitution, forgive my choice of words here, may be a good idea. Could we have that, please?
Can I just chip in now? Thank you very much, Patrick. I appreciate what you've just said. Thank you.
If I could just direct members to paragraph 2.3 of the report, that sets out what is contained in the Localism Act should be covered in the tenancy strategy. So I completely understand where members are coming from and why you would want to see that detail attached as an appendix, but it's not what was envisaged by the statute. As you can see, it's set out there. Otherwise, we'd also be having to look at, well, what are the repairing obligations, what are the succession rights, all of those different issues that you will find contained in the detail of a tenancy agreement being set out in an appendix, and that's not what the Localism Act was intended to do. We can certainly, what I would suggest we do is that at the point that we, the council, are in a position to start offering secure tenancies, that before we do that, we'll come back to the committee with a template document of a tenancy agreement, so that you then will be able to see and approve the type of tenancy that we'll be offering to tenants once we're in that position.
Very good, John. Yeah, very good. Hopefully everybody else will agree with me on that.
And that if I may ask, the pet policy would be implemented in the tenancy agreement in that template?
Yeah, well, what we need to go through the process first. So once we do the review, after the first 12 months, if members wish to continue with that policy as it stands or make amendments to it, then yes, whatever comes out of the review can be incorporated into the tenancies template. Yes.
Could we put the tenancy template as an appendix to this high-level document? Although bearing in mind that the tenancy template may change from time to time, but so they therefore leave it as an open to be amendable part, with the officer's responsibility to amend it if and when a tenancy agreement has been updated.
My advice would not be to do that, because, as I said, the what should be in the tenancy strategy is set out at 2.3, but also because what you're asking for is a document that is very personal to the council, whereas this document is not just for the council's purposes, it's also for other housing providers. So I think it would be more useful to keep the two matters separate. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you. Okay, I've got nobody else wishing to ask any questions, so I'll propose from the chair again on this item, if that's okay, on the two recommendations on page 48. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second it, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Carter, thank you. Thank you very much. And if there's no dissent, that will be a unanimous decision. Okay, thank you very much, everybody, and thank you, John. But back to John again for item 17, assisting ineligible rough sleepers. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Chair. This is a rather unusual policy document to bring before the committee, but we felt it was important that members had the opportunity to consider what was being proposed and then to vote on the way that they feel Maidstone Borough Council should move forward. I think it's something of an urban myth that local housing authorities will provide accommodation to anybody that turns up on their doorstep, when clearly that's not the position. And the housing legislation sets out the criteria of persons who are not eligible for assistance, and most of that is around somebody's immigration status. So particularly a person who's not eligible for what's called recourse to public funds, that would also mean that they're not they wouldn't be able to avail themselves of temporary accommodation, emergency accommodation, or housing through the housing register in normal circumstances. Because of what's happened with COVID and the instructions that local authorities were given to what was then termed everybody in, so get everybody off of the streets, there was a dilemma that was faced, particularly for some of the metropolitan boroughs, but we've experienced it to some degree ourselves in Maidstone, of persons that would fall into one of those categories where they weren't eligible for assistance, being on the street and there being no immediate solution for them, whilst at the same time we were being encouraged by the Ministry of Housing to enable support to be given to those persons. As members will be fully aware, the UK left the EU, well, they left last year, but we formally left in January this year, and there is a transition period between now and June for EEA citizens that's set out in the report. What we're asking members to do is to consider our approach to those persons who were or are EEA nationals that aren't exercising their treaty rights for whichever reason, and it's normally because they've lost their employment, they've lost their housing as a result of living on the street, they lose their documents, so their ability to get back into work is affected by that, and then because they've become street homeless, they become entrenched in some of the worst aspects of that, and substance misuse often goes along with it. So it's very difficult then to get people back into a position where they can start exercising those rights again. So what we're asking members to consider is how we assist those EEA nationals. Now, we have been instructed previously by government that the rough sleeper initiative grant that we use for people who are rough sleeping and our homelessness flexible grant cannot be used for ineligible applicants, which left us in a bit of a lacuna as to how we fund that. But we have, since writing the report, there is a new grant that has become available around containment of the COVID virus, which will enable us to actually, rather than having to use the general fund as suggested in the report, it does appear now that we will have flexibility to use that containment fund. But members are asked to consider those three options that are set out in paragraph 3. The preferred option, as suggested, is option 2, which is to provide assistance to EEA nationals who are not otherwise open to that assistance up until the end of June, which is when the transition period ends. That's the preferred option, but I'm very much here to assist members with a discussion about the approach they wish to take. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I've got no questions in the IM from anybody. No, Councillor Joy.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm leaning towards option 2, so I haven't got a problem with it. But the only one thing that I just wanted a little bit of clarification on is 4.5, where it says it's the preferred option, but there is a risk that the council might be open to legal challenge. Is there anything, and I know you've gone on to say about it, but is it anything we should worry about if we chose to go with option 2, Mr. Littlemore?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Joy. The reason I hesitate is because we've not experienced a challenge along similar lines, and I'm not aware of there having been a challenge elsewhere across the country. And we did talk to our specialist advisors at the Ministry of Housing on that topic, but and I think using the containment fund also assists us. But there is a small risk, nonetheless, that somebody might object to the council taking that line, and although I can't see it happening, there is the possibility that we could be challenged in court for using public funds in that way when, strictly speaking, well, it's open to interpretation whether we should or not. So that's really where the risk comes from, not necessarily from the applicants themselves, because obviously if we're providing assistance, that's unlikely to happen. But there is that, as I say, I think it's just important that we point out that there is a remote chance that there could be a challenge. As there's no case law on the point, it's very difficult to say to members, well, it would go this way or that way. Thank you.
No, thank you, Chairman. In that case, I'd like to agree the recommendation as on page 62, if I have a second.
Okay. Is there a seconder for that, please?
Yes, I'd like to second it. Robertson, Chairman.
Okay, Cynthia, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I've got...
I'd just like to say that I think it's a very humane answer to a unique situation.
Yes, yeah. My words exactly as well, Cynthia. Thank you. I've got Councillor Garton next, please.
Yeah, the option 2 is a sensible option. It not only looks at the situation of those individuals involved, it also looks at the consequences of us not acting if we should not choose to option 2 with regards to crime and disorder, etc. What is deriving from certain homeless people. I've got a small, very tiny question where it says have a connection to Maidstone for a period of 12 weeks until 30th of June. Does this period of 12 weeks terminate on the 30th of June, or if I walk into the office on the 29th of June trying to show my connection with Maidstone, would that give me an additional 12 weeks beyond the 30th of June? That is just a small question, and then I may have another one which is not quite quite directly related to this option.
Thank you, Councillor Garton. It does mean that the assistance would end on the 30th of June, so if somebody approached the week before, they would only get the week's assistance, I'm afraid.
Okay, no, that is clear, and we have it now for the public record as well in the recordings of this meeting. The other question is a bit of a personal thing which I actually raised with the immigration minister a few years ago. They do keep changing, unfortunately, so I never even get responses to my query. But do we have any statistics about people who live in Maidstone who have no access to public funds, but who are parents of British children? I'm talking about where the mother is, for example, Canadian or Russian. She has a child with a British boyfriend. Then the couple splits up, and the mother is left with a child who is entitled to claim British citizenship due to the father's connection, but the mother has no recourse to public funds, although she normally has permission to remain in the country. And these are very, very sad cases, and they seem to be falling through all sorts of legal loopholes. Do we have any figures of how many, if any, of those people are affected by that in Maidstone?
Thank you, Councillor Goff. We would only be aware of those people that approach us for assistance, and so if there are households living in that situation without approaching us, then we wouldn't be made aware of them. But that those categories of persons that you are describing is something that we do record if they make a homelessness approach to us, for example. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Patrick. Okay, Councillor Pegka, please.
Thanks, Chairman. I get one question to Mr. John Littlemore. If the EA national who are not eligible, what's going to happen regarding the demographic, the statistic for rough sleeper or the homeless people? That is still accounted to the routine counting. And the second question is about, just to be clarified, is the EA national or the people, everybody who are not subject to the public fund? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Kaggar. We will continue to do the street count as a requirement on us because of the amount of funding we receive from government. So that will continue, and we will still continue to break that down as to whether the people that we identify on the street are local, whether they are EA nationals, as far as we can going forward. In terms of what's before you, members, it does just relate to those EA nationals, because for those persons there is this transitory period that the government's put in place that's not there for other persons who are not eligible for assistance. Thank you.
Okay, is that okay, Dinesh? You're fine with that?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Powell.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we can.
Oh, you can? Yeah, I mean, a number of the points have actually been covered, but it does open up all sorts of questions, this particular area. I mean, firstly, are Maidstone going it alone? Are we part of a directive from Kent County Council? Are we part of a directive from central government? And surely everywhere there should be a central policy that I believe that we are just adopting here within Maidstone. But obviously what we've got before us tonight is a choice of three options. And yes, if I had to choose out the three, I would go for option two. I don't think it's an ideal situation, but option two has got a lot of common sense about it. But when we're actually looking at homelessness, at the moment, we've got, I've gone public on this loads of times. We've got an amazing track record here in Maidstone, and that is credit to the officers, the support groups, and everybody involved with the homelessness. I think we've done an amazing job here in Maidstone. I can see come June time that situation might get totally out of hand. But I just wondered if I could ask Mr. Littlemore this. What are other areas of Kent? What are they actually doing themselves within this same area? Because are Medway going to be adopting option 1, Maidstone, option 2, Thanet option 3? I mean, I really don't know, so I'd just really like to have some input, if that's possible.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Powell. I can feed back to members that it's certainly a topic that gets raised regularly at the Kent Housing Group meetings that I attend, where all the district councils, including Medway, are also present, and we have the specialist advisors from the Ministry of Housing and Communities and Local Government there as well. So it's something that Maidstone is not alone in being concerned with. In terms of having a document like this before them, I think we like to see ourselves as very much at the forefront of the delivery of these types of services. I'm not aware that anybody else has adopted something similar, but perhaps they may follow once Maidstone once again takes the lead. We did feel it was very important for you as members to be aware of what services are that we're providing, and to have the opportunity for your input into this, and to give officers the steer in which way you would like this to be delivered, because it's you're quite right. It's not it's not clear cut, the direction of travel. We are being asked to do something by central government, while central government acknowledges that we shouldn't be. That the primary legislation that existed is still there, and nothing around the COVID regulations and housing have changed anything around that. Yeah. So we are being asked to use our initiative to work through those minefields, if you like, and we felt, as I say, we felt it was important that you as members gave us the steer on how you wished the direction of travel, which is why the paper's been brought to you this evening. Thank you.
No, I appreciate that, and thank you ever so much for that explanation. I mean, on the item number 1, which is basically the summary page, when you go down to the area of financial and look at the MHCLG as previously written to local housing authorities to confirm that the Rough Sleeper Initiative grant cannot be used to cover the cost of providing accommodation to persons who are ineligible under the Housing Act 1996. Well, when you look at that particular area, what does that relate to? Does that mean somebody has actually got to present themselves to the council as having a family member living within the borough and maybe a national insurance number? Because if we're looking at some of the that could cause an issue as well. I mean, that could cause a human rights issue, if you like, if somebody can't prove either. Do we just ship them down to Dover, or do we actually look after them? I mean, it's quite an issue when we're looking at something like this. And I mean, I don't know what the answers are, and whatever suggestion I would come up with or could come up with would be personal as opposed to to legal. So I'm just thinking out loud, and the more I look at this whole section, for the purpose of this meeting, yes, I'm going to go along with option 2, but I'm still interested in what your thoughts are about the comment that I've just made.
It is a very complex area of housing legislation that we have to deal with, and we could spend the whole evening discussing the complexities of that and the various permutations of when somebody approaches us. But suffice to say, in the normal round of things, if somebody enters the country and their immigration status is that they're being sponsored, those persons are not normally likely to, they're given leave to remain as long as they don't become a burden on the state, if you like, which is where the no recourse to public funds comes in. So those people, they can approach us for advice and assistance, but we can't provide accommodation assistance in that way. But as has been said earlier this evening by Councillor Garton, there are different permutations of that. Then there is a whole raft of case law that helps direct officers through that minefield to enable us to try and assist people where it's legal to do so. But it is true there are categories of persons that in normal times we are not able to assist because that's how the legislation was intended to be drafted by Parliament. Thank you.
No, that's okay. Well, thanks ever so much, John. I mean, as you say, it's a minefield, but no, that's great. Thank you, and thanks, Mr. Chairman.
No, thank you. And that was a very interesting discussion I found there, and thank you for everybody's input on the committee members, and it was very good. And thank you, John, for explaining it. Trying to put it into some layman's language for us. Thank you very much. Okay, now the recommendation which I support as well as option 2, because I think it's the humane and right approach that we have to do this. And but it was proposed by Councillor Joy and seconded by Councillor Robertson. Do I hear any dissent at all? No, silence. So that's unanimously carried. Thank you very much, everybody. And we can immediately move. Thank you very much, John, by the way. And we go on to item 18, strategic plan. Proposed areas of focus 21-26 and key performance indicators for COVID-19 recovery. Page 69, folks. And it's going to be presented by Anna Collier and Angela Woodhouse. Over to you, ladies.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and good evening, members. The Council's strategic plan was adopted in 2019 till 2045, and in July last year, Policy and Resources Committee agreed that the Council would undertake a refresh of the plan as opposed to a rewrite, as there had been significant progress in areas of focus since the plan was adopted, but the priorities and visions remained the same. Members can see the progress made at Appendix A of your report. There is also a very important need at the moment to ensure that the Council's resources are in place to respond to the impacts that the Borough has experienced as a result of the pandemic, and this should be reflected as well. The report asks members of the committee to provide feedback on the proposed changes of focus for the period 2021 to 2026, especially in those areas within the remit of this committee, and these can be seen at Appendix C of this report. These new areas of focus have been drafted based upon feedback that members provided on future priorities, which was undertaken last summer. Public's feedback on the impact on their lives from the pandemic from a survey undertaken with them in late 2020, and feedback and consideration that we've received from members and officers in the intervening months in the development of the areas of focus, and this has been reflected in the report. Finally, members are also invited to provide feedback on the set of proposed key performance indicators at Appendix D. These have been selected in order to ensure that the Council can monitor progress towards recovery and will replace the Council's current KPIs. Please note that subsequently the Head of Housing and Community Services has recommended a change to one of these indicators, and this is reports of domestic abuse. He's recommended that this is amended to the number of cases where the cause of homelessness is domestic abuse. This is because it is easier for us to collect, as it comes from our own data that we collect and report on, rather than relying on information from partners which we don't receive regularly. And this is directly related to our statutory duties in respect of DA. This report was presented to Policy and Resources on the 20th of January and before being presented to each committee, and will return to Policy and Resources later this month with recommendations based on the feedback from each committee. Thank you, and myself and Angela Woodhouse are happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Anna. Thank you. I don't have anybody indicated in the IM. Nobody at all. It runs from page 69 through to 98.
Seeing as nobody spoke.
Thank you, Councillor Joy. She's gone.
not having much luck tonight. It does say we're going to have a progress update anyway, which is going to be presented again in April, which I think will be helpful. So I was pleased to see that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I've got John Littlemore as well. Would like to come in, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. The only other amendment that I was seeking to ask the committee to consider was in Appendix D, is just the frequency of reporting on the community data set, because they're listed as monthly. But it would certainly assist us if that was changed to quarterly, because they match the data return that we have to provide to government, but that's provided quarterly rather than monthly. So, and I think it will give members a more rounded picture if we report them quarterly rather than monthly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Cheers. Okay, everybody, thank you very much. The recommendations on page 69, the two recommendations, I'll propose them from the chair. Do I have a seconder?
Sorry, I'll give way.
Check that when you second, what Mr. Littlemore has just said will be incorporated into those recommendations. Yeah, I'll let whoever that was second.
On top of the amendments on pages 96 and 97. Yeah.
Okay, back to me again. And yeah, I'll second that. And exactly what Denise has just said is okay.
Right. Lovely. So did I propose? I can't remember now. To propose and Eddie seconded. Yeah. Lovely. Thank you. So if there's no dissent, folks. No, that is carried then. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much, Anna and Angela, wherever you are.
Thank you. I'm here. Thanks, everyone. I'll take that on board. Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you. Lovely. Okay, now we're going on to the brightest topic of the evening on item 19, Maidstone in Bloom borough-wide competition. And I'm looking forward to this. So for some good news for a change. Over to Andrew Williams, please, Andrew.
Thank you, Chairman, and good evening, members. It's nice to be called the brightest item on the agenda, so I do appreciate that. Thank you. But I'm sure you're talking about the opportunity. We have been approached, so Maidstone Borough Council has been approached by a local business who is very au fait with the In Bloom competition cycle that some members may have heard of with RHS, the Royal Horticultural Society. It's quite a popular pastime and competition across the country. It's not something I've been aware of the borough has engaged with or endorsed in the past. There may be further history to this that I'm not aware of, but what we are presented with is an opportunity to engage with a local business that is operating in the borough. A local resident is a coordinator for the scheme and works with the business that would offer management, coordination and administration for a borough-wide scheme to encourage people to engage in horticultural, environmental and community positive projects. So really it is as simple as that. It offers great opportunity for marketing the borough in a positive, environmentally friendly and bright, colourful town and into the parishes and so on. So it offers many positives, and I think I'll leave it at that for taking questions from members.
Okay, many thanks, Andrew. Thank you for that. Right, I've got a visiting member, Lottie, please. Parfitt Reed, please. Councillor Parfitt Reed, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just before I start, I hope you don't mind, but I'd just like to pay a small tribute to Captain Sir Tom Moore, who very sadly passed away today. He really was an inspiring person and a true hero. So I just wanted to say, rest in peace, Sir Tom. Now on to this item. I was approached by a resident in my ward who told me all about this scheme and wanted to know how to put it to the council. So that's what we did. He talked me through the scheme, and to be honest, I just couldn't see anything about it that was negative. It was just such a lovely thing to do. I mean, a scheme such as this would dramatically improve the visual aesthetics of our town and our rural villages, making our spaces just cleaner and brighter and perhaps safer. I think it also brings community engagement into our space, which I think is really important. It gets people outside, and it encourages a sense of pride in our community, which can only be a good thing. It's also very good for people's mental health, gardening. I mean, we know from the pandemic, loads of people have got massively into their gardens, and, you know, it is good for our physical health as well. And I know that because I had to dig a bed in my garden last week, and it took me 3 hours, and I did 8,500 steps. So it's certainly good physical exercise as well. And the other thing that I think it would add to the community is biodiversity, and it should hopefully attract lots of bees and other insects. So I just wanted to say I think this is a wonderful scheme, and I really would urge the committee to take it up, and I hope you can support it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for taking the time to come along and supporting this. I have got Councillor Margaret Rose in the IM.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Totally agree, and thank you to Councillor Parfitt-Reid for some very interesting and obviously important comments. Can I make a very light comment now? As a rose, I wonder, can you support rose growing and rose use in these blooming Maidstone? So I think possibly Councillor Daniel Rose might agree with me as well. So anyway,
roses.
So anyway, it's a lovely idea, and totally wish you well in all of it. Thank you very much.
Okay, right, I've got Councillor Powell, please.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, absolutely brilliant idea, and well done, Councillor Parfitt-Reid, for bringing this idea forward. I mean, one of my other roles, I sit as a chairman on Harwich Parish Council, and for a number of years now, they've had Harrietsham in bloom. So anybody driving down the A20 will see lovely displays of flower pots on the side and beds and whatever. That's nothing to do with Kent County Council. That is people contributing from the local neighbourhood in Harwich, and it really does brighten up the place. And it's commented by tens, maybe hundreds of people when they actually kind of see that. So if we can replicate that across the borough, and there's financial support for doing that, well done to Councillor Parfitt-Reid and her team, and the person who contacted her originally. Absolutely brilliant. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Eddie. Councillor Garton.
My question may sound a little bit like all sports, but can we just have it confirmed that there's no financial commitment by Maidstone Borough Council other than a little bit of officers' time from our PR department? Is that correct, my understanding?
Thank you,
absolutely. Sorry, yes, thank you. That's exactly as we understand it. There is no other commitment other than a little bit of supportive time with marketing, PR, the communications, and we may be able to put a bit of time into assisting with creating the categories and judging the two.
Sounds absolutely fantastic, because this is an opportunity, although it may be a bit of advertising for the gardening centre itself inadvertently, but it is a fantastic opportunity where the borough grasps the opportunity to actually support somebody to enable a good community project, and my support is fully with it.
Lovely, thank you. I have Councillor Joy next, please.
Yes, just generally to echo what's already been said, I think it's a great thing, and we should get behind it and promote it as much as possible. And I'm looking forward to seeing some lovely plants and flowers when I can get out. So well done, everybody. Thanks.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you. I don't think there's anybody else indicating no. I mean, as soon as I heard about this and said, bring it to committee, if you know what I mean, and I'm sure there won't be any issues around this at all. It's a great project. It's a great project for Maidstone. I'm a gardener myself and appreciate the love of flowers and actually getting them to produce. The only one.
The roses.
All right then.
Sorry.
And that I was going to say that from my point of view, I mean, obviously we got the climate change and biodiversity strategies around, so we should have at the top of our priorities bee friendly and the biodiversity element of and support in it, as opposed to possibly non-natives and all that sort of business. So we have to do it the best we can. But I fully support it. And there's no more. Oh, we got Councillor Dinesh. You indicating?
No, just echo to like the other speaker, just supporting. Yes, really good idea. We're gonna support all the way through.
Right, lovely. Thank you very much. Thank you. So I propose item 19 from the recommendations as set out on page 99 for the Maidstone in Bloom competition, and I'll propose it from the chair. Do I have a seconder?
Agreed.
Agreed. Councillor Joy, or very fast on that.
Seconded.
I'll put it right.
Rose seconding it.
Was it Councillor? It was Councillor Joy, wasn't it?
Yeah, she beat me.
Okay. That's lovely. Okay, so if there's no dissent, obviously, that will be no. Everybody's being nice and quiet. Thank you very much. Lovely, and that's obviously passed unanimously. Thank you very much, Andrew, for your time and bringing this to us, and we look forward to the flowers in the summer. That's very good of you, and thank you everybody for your attendance this evening. Folks, the meeting now. Hope you all have a good evening. What's left of it, and all the best to you, and keep safe.
Keep safe.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye. Bye.